I'm going to turn it over to Sarah and take it away.
Thank you so much, Jen. Hey everyone, so it's so nice to be here in New Glasgow. I'm super excited about being back at the Ignite office. It's really nice doing a hybrid event as well. So anyone online, please feel free to reach out afterwards as well to connect. I'm really happy to do that as well. So as mentioned, I'm Sarah Livingstone with OKR Financial, and today we're going to be talking about accelerating growth with non-dilutive sources of capital. Oh, it's not sharing now.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool, we're all set. Awesome. All right, so real quick, we're going to go over about us, OKR Financial. We're going to talk about what we offer. We're going to talk about Canadian tax credits, government grants, asset-based lending, and our simple process and what really makes us different and why to work with us. So about OKR Financial. So OKR Financial was founded in 2015 by Jason Neal and Randy Thompson, two serial entrepreneurs. We have 8 funds across the board with currently 140 million under management. And then we really look to help entrepreneurs access non-dilutive financing. So that's really our key focus. So the way that we do that, our first service of financing is we specialize in bridge financing, tax credits, and government grants. So that's really our key area. The biggest one we work with is SHRED, which we'll go over today, but we really do work with all 2,500 federal and provincial initiatives that are out there. We also do our second area of non-dilutive financing, which is asset-based lending. So I'll go into deeper detail about that, but more or less that's both commercial and hard assets. And then lastly, we do also have an equity fund, and we also do look at doing turnaround investments. So I'll kind of go over that at the end as well, but really our key focus is that non-dilutive side of things. So what problem are we solving? So countless companies are really looking for ways to speed up their growth while minimizing the amount of equity they give up. Our two co-founders really just felt that within the Canadian ecosystem, there are too many companies that were giving up huge chunks of equity for small amounts of capital early on, which is not a win-win solution. So that's how OKR Financial really came to be. And then why do we care? So we are entrepreneurs and angel investors. Our fund was really built out of necessity. And when founders struggled to find SHRED financing through traditional financiers and banks, that's really where we came into existence. So what makes me an expert? So prior to this role, I worked in food service manufacturing. So all tiers of entrepreneurs within the food service space. And I really brought them into the marketplace in food service and retail, but primarily focused on food service. I also do business development here in Atlantic Canada. So happy to meet with anyone in the Atlantic Canadian area and abroad as well. We are a national firm. I'm just doing the representation for Atlantic Canada. So Canadian tax credits. So today we're going to talk about 3 of them. So we're going to talk about SHRED, the digital media tax credit, and the film tax credit. So SHRED. So first of all, SHRED stands for Scientific Research Experimental Development. It's an incentive that began in 1986. It applies to all Canadian entities. All industries can apply, and only 5% of companies are wearing lab coats. So that means that the other 95% of companies that are accessing SHRED are really out there doing things outside of a lab, but they are doing R&D. So that's really what qualifies kind of a company. I'll go into more detail about it, but the Canadian government does help over 30,000 Canadian companies a year, and there's almost $4 billion a year invested into the SHRED tax credit. So it is the largest tax credit available for Canadian entrepreneurs. So industries, all industries can really apply. This is just kind of a highlight of all the different industries that we typically see applying within it, but really any company doing R&D is eligible. So how do you do a SHRED project versus a company R&D project? So first of all, you have to have a new product, a new process, improvement of an existing product, or improvement of existing process. So it doesn't mean that you have to be reinventing the wheel, but if you are improving on something, that is also an R&D eligible tax credit. So it's really just about doing your due diligence, what exists and how it is limited. So do an internet search, do supplier discussions, and testing existing solutions as well. So for a SHRED project, you have to have a formulating test hypotheses, planning and executing test programs, and developing logical conclusions. That's really what's going to make a project SR&ED eligible. We like to think of it as a high school experiment. So when you're in high school and you're doing a high school experiment, what really happens is you ask yourself a question, you construct a hypothesis, and then you test with an experiment. And if you're doing those steps and processes, that makes you SR&ED eligible. The eligible expenditures while you're doing this, so what to be keeping kind of tally on, is really your proxy, materials, subcontracts, and salaries. You also have to be a CCPC company, so you have to be a Canadian controlled private corporation. You have to be incorporated to be eligible. And then this is kind of just a breakdown of kind of what you can claim back on SR&ED as well. So salaries, it's about 65%, contractors 32%, and then materials are another 42%. And that's what would be refundable for your SR&ED tax credit. We also work with non-CCP or larger CCP companies. So if you have over $800,000 in sale, you still are eligible. It just changes how much of a refund you can get. So really SR&ED is geared towards kind of early startups and entrepreneurs. So simple ways to maximize your SR&ED tax credit claim. Alrighty, so here's a case study that we like to highlight. So this is a company that has salaries of $100,000. They have subcontractors of $100,000. They have total expenses of $200,000. So what they can claim back federally is $74,000. And then that makes a total refund of $97,000 when you include your provincial tax credits as well. This way, we like to do it this way. So this is really what we recommend companies to do, is to ask your contractors if they would be willing to go on payroll for a few months in lieu of just a contract, because then you can claim back a larger portion of that salary. So this is just the breakdown. So you get almost $31,000 extra compared to not using contractors. All right, so SR&ED documentation and how to do a claim. So the great thing about SR&ED is you can go actually 18 months back from your fiscal year end to do a claim. So that's a big portion that you can claim back 18 months. And then it's really important just to keep note of everything you're doing. Some companies do get flagged to be reviewed. So it's just really important that you're documenting all your time, your activities, and your cost when you are looking to do a SR&ED claim back. And then the SR&ED process. So the first thing is the project identification. Then you have to do your technical interviews, your financial data, your technical write-up, and then your claim is submitted. It's not the most difficult claim to submit out of all the government programs that are out there, but it is somewhat of a lengthy process. We do also work with SR&ED consulting firms. So typically a SR&ED consulting firm is going to charge a contingency rate of about 10 to 30%. The great thing about working with SR&ED consultants is they really know the wording and how to present the information to get the claim back. And the best part is where they're working on a contingency fee, they only get paid if you get paid. Here we look at SR&ED versus SR&ED financing. So typically a company has a fiscal year end of January. That's just what we're going to use for this example. So at the top, it would be your typical breakdown of when you put your SR&ED claim in and then how you get reimbursed for it. And then at the bottom is if you utilize us. So what we can do is we can provide financing on your upcoming SR&ED claim up to 6 months in advance of the actual claim. So if you kind of just think if you invest that money 6 months in advance in either hires or marketing, how much further ahead your company would be within that 6 months. So you're really able to utilize the SR&ED claim as an asset within the company, and then we can kind of lend against that. So that's a really quick overview of SR&ED. I don't know if there are any questions related to SR&ED yet. Always happy to have a conversation afterwards to kind of deep dive into it. We're all good. Awesome.
Are you going to talk about interest rates later? Or?
With working with us?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the way that our interest rates work and the way that you kind of work with us, so we create a loan to value of 70% of a SR&ED claim. So that means if you're getting a SR&ED claim of $100,000, then we can provide 70% right up front, 6 months prior to the SR&ED claim. And then we give a range of interest rates of working with us. Typically, it's about 1.4 to 2.4% monthly. So once an application comes back, then we can kind of provide further, concrete terms. It's a really broad range. That just kind of helps us encompass all companies. So if you've claimed SHRED before, it's going to be a lower rate as well, but that would be our interest rates. And then there are no setup fees, no drawdown fees. You can stack different government programs too, and then utilize us kind of as a line of credit in the background as well. Yeah, so then government grants. So are you doing any of the following really? So having a regional impact, improving your competitive advantage, exporting, hiring and training new skills, or creating innovative projects, then you're likely eligible for government grants. So government programs, so there are over 2,500 both federally and provincial programs available to Canadian entrepreneurs. It's a $10 billion funding opportunity in Canada as well. So the government is heavily investing in funding these government grants. 90% of the programs require a dollar-to-dollar match. That's also where we come in. I'll kind of further explain that in a little bit. 95% of the programs are also non-refundable. So that means that you're just getting the money to kind of further your project or your company. The best way to kind of really find these programs and how to do your research on it is there's government websites. Nothing is really straightforward, but there are government websites you can look through. There are also consulting firms. So just as mentioned as the SHRED consultants, a consulting firm for government grants is very similar to the SHRED consultants. There are also funding portals that we can give you access to as well. We're working really closely with a company called Hello Pocketed. And they kind of have an easy to use interface to navigate the government programs. And then there are also events. So there are events, I was doing one with the Canadian Super Cluster on Tuesday where, representatives from these government grants come and speak to entrepreneurs to encourage them to utilize in the programs that they're responsible for. So the best way to prepare for government funding. So the first thing is to develop a mini business plan. Then you engage with either a firm or an employee. Review your mini business plan every 3 months or every quarter. It's really important to keep on top of your business plan. The application is typically to be ready 2 weeks before the program opens because there is a high demand when programs open. With the programs, like typically they see, hundreds of people engaging, and then also engagement with a program manager as well is very important. All right, so research and development. So this is probably the largest areas of government funding. So it's really any project with the objective to grow and generate profits through adoption, adaptation, development, and commercialization of innovative technology-driven new or improved products, services, or processes. The real project requirements there is it involves technical feasibility or productivity enhancement studies, developing products which could be of interest to the government to purchase. The pre-commercialization stage was this prototypes or technology demonstrations, and then working with university or colleges on an R&D incentive. And then eligible funding, so it's federal, provincial funding, depending on project expenditures. And then if you have a successful history of claiming SHRED, you might also be really eligible or even pre-qualify for R&D related grants. The next biggest area of government funding is HR and training. So there's a huge push right now for this, especially in Canada. So anyone under the age of 30 that you're looking to hire, very likely that you'll be eligible for a government grant to cover that employee. If not all of it, a big portion of it. It's also for skilled and unskilled positions, candidates facing barriers to employment as well, and then any university students for R&D purposes or summertime work, and candidates for apprentices as well. And then your eligible training criteria, so your current and new employees, it'd be training to support the adoption of new technologies, processes, or procedures, and then training to enhance work-related skills and career development. And then eligible funding. So funding can come in the form of tax credit, 50/50 training costs, or non-repayable wage subsidies. From there, also commercialization is another big area of the government grants. So that's implementing infrastructure modifications, facility modifications and processes and improvements, building innovation capacity, improving export growth, productivity, performance, and competitiveness, and exhibiting at international trade shows as well. All eligible criteria for commercialization. And then eligible funding, so incentives of up to 20% of the total project cost, with additional grant funding possible based on project type and location. And it's really based on expenditures. Approved funding could be in the millions here as well. And then capital expenditure, so purchasing of commercial and research equipment or software that contributes to increasing exports, improves productivity and efficiency, introduces new technology, retrofits existing technologies to become more competitive, upgrades to energy efficiency equipment or technology, and the development of new or improved manufacturing machines and equipment. It must have a minimum of 10 to 15 employees depending on the grant. So that's just typically what we're seeing is you have to have over 10 employees to be eligible for this kind of government grants. And it's either federal or provincial. So there is a lot of provincial right now in Nova Scotia, a lot in agriculture for equipment as well. So it's always something to keep in mind with your projects. And then green initiative, sorry. So the company criteria, so it's really commercial space or buildings such as offices, retail, grocery stores, restaurants, hotels, and warehouses, industrial facilities, agriculture, institutional buildings, or multifamily buildings such as apartments or condominiums. There's typically eligible funding there as well. And then that's kind of anything related to improving the building for eco-friendly version of what they're trying to accomplish. And then the funding ranges from the thousands, and predetermined or uncapped incentives are based on their energy savings for the duration of the year. Again, so the grant consulting firms, as mentioned, Hello Pocket is a really great tool to navigate these programs. They also send out updates when there's new programs about to open to keep you kind of in the radar. They're doing a lot here in Atlantic Canada. Happy to introduce you to the website or a representative of Hello Pocketed, and it's a free to use platform as well, which is really nice. So if you're not quite ready to kind of engage with a consultant, this is a free to use option. And then the consultants, again, just kind of work on a contingency fee. We're always happy to make introductions as well. Once we kind of have a better understanding of your company and what you're looking to accomplish, then we can kind of recommend the best consultant that we think that you should be speaking with. And then we're also able to kind of highlight, like, so I deal with the different government programs on a daily basis. Again, so just kind of if we're engaged, I can also kind of recommend some government programs that are out there as well. So government program financing. So we kind of went over the focus and the areas that are really included in those programs. But here's where we like to talk about that 90% of the programs require a dollar-to-dollar match. So that's where we really come in and can help. So what we do is we offer letters of intent. So we've done this with over 100 companies now, and they've become eligible for the program. So program managers are, kind of putting up a fight with this. The government wants to give out the funds, and it is hard for a company if you want to release $100,000 to show that you also have $100,000. So we're really here to kind of make that easier and to bridge that. So the way that we work with that, so we would first have you fill out an application. Once the approval has gone through, then we can do up to 65% of the required matching funds. That's a free to use service from us, because we want entrepreneurs in Canada to be accessing these programs. It's really a focus of ours. We're really trying to encourage companies not to give up equity early on, despite kind of that being the rhetoric that's being told to companies. We really like to try to push that non-dilutive side of things. Asset-based lending. So this is really our second area of financing that we help with. So that would really be purchase order financing, contract financing, accounts receivable financing. So we do MRR financing. We also can finance inventory, which is really interesting for some companies. And then we also do capital expenditures. So that'd be like equipment, land, that kind of thing. And then typically what we look for when we're doing an asset-based lending is that the purchaser of the contract, so the person on the other side of the contract, really the main criteria for us to say, okay, we can secure this financing is just for the company to have been around for 2 years at least, so that they have a track record of success. And then that would be the only security that we would really use. So you don't have to put up any personal collateral. It would just be the contract or the purchase order that we would look to finance. Here's a breakdown of all the kind of the material that we need to secure the application and the funding against asset-based financing as well. So there is an application process with working with us, but it's typically things, you know, that you have right at the click of a button if you're an entrepreneur. Now we're going to do a little breakdown of debt versus equity to kind of highlight why debt is a better option than equity. So in the long run, if you're looking to secure $300,000 for your company, you're an early set on company. Typically, if you don't have sales or a proven track record, you're going to have to give up 30% of your company in terms of equity to secure that $300,000. So if you look on the left, that would be working with us, and then on the right would be working with either like an angel group or VC. If you work with us, you would have to pay us interest rates of about $18,000 or $18,000. Then we do the breakdown of, you know, a company, you had $200,000 in annual revenue, profits of 100,000. Then you have to again pay your investors. So you'd have to give 30,000 to them. So if you do the breakdown, the cost of capital of debt versus equity is a lot less expensive in terms of debt than it is equity. And this would just be for year one. If in year three, you know, your profit's gone up 3 times, then that's all straight profit because you wouldn't be utilizing us for the debt anymore. You would have paid us back in full. So what makes us different and really why they engage with us? So we're really about speed. So we understand that entrepreneurs get into, you know, kind of situations where they need cash through the door right away. So we like to say that from application to terms to funding is 10 business days. So typically we get held up with legal fees or legal files where we have to just have a lawyer secure everything. That takes about 3 to 4 days. But otherwise, we're really quick at turning around financing, and we really pride ourselves on that. We also do a lot in the hybrid approach as well. So if you were looking for $300,000, but you're only eligible for government programs of about $200,000, it's not off the table that we'll look at doing an investment in terms of equity, take a small amount of equity, and then you can kind of have the best of both worlds. And that is why we have that equity fund, is to support organizations that aren't eligible for the full amount that they're looking to get to, like either manufacturing or Series A. And then we also really have a really nice proven leadership team. So both of our 2 co-founders, our managing partners, both have over 20 years of business experience in Canada. They've started and sold numerous companies in Canada as well. So they're really really able to help entrepreneurs in that sense as well. So once you engage with us, then you're really a part of kind of our family, and we're going to look to help you with introductions or anything that we can as well. We really work with all industries as well, so we're not business agnostic, so we can help anyone in any industry. So it's really nice to keep in mind as well. Here are just 2 really nice quotes that I like to talk about from 2 of our existing clients. So their lending product saw us through the transformation of our program to Canada's only university-approved digital language pathway for international students. They helped make our product unique again. So that's from CultureWorks, a company we were engaged with about 2 years ago. And we have another one here from Access Lab. So the process was extremely fast and efficient. OKR understands the needs of startups and how freeing up the cash tied in these assets allows us to extend the runway. If ever you were looking for kind of, you know, testimonials from companies in Atlantic Canada, we're also able to provide that as well. This is our executive management team, all great guys, really well experienced. And then again, their contacts become your contacts when you're engaged with us as well. A few of our key partners. So I work very closely in Nova Scotia with the Halifax Partnership and Volta as well. So we're also partnered with them. Happy to meet with anyone in Nova Scotia as well. So just to recap, as I kind of conclude this, we really look to help entrepreneurs with non-dilutive financing. So the first area that we help with is asset secured loans. And then we also do government program financing. And then, as mentioned, we also do have an equity fund as well. Now we're going to do some Q&A. Any questions at all? Don't see anything.
So do you look at projections as well to see whether or not someone can pay the amount of interest?
Yeah, definitely. So where we secure only 70% of the government program or the asset, we feel really comfortable based off that number that just that will be able to pay us back. But we do, need the company to be feasible. So that is something that we look at, definitely. But the only security would be the government program. Any other questions?
Quiet bunch.
Quiet bunch. Any questions from online?
Oh, there's one actually here. Suppose I'm an early stage clean tech startup. Can you help us raise a grant, for example, to get us through the first stages?
Yes. So what we would do in that area, so we don't do the grant writing, just to be very clear on that, we don't do that, but we will help you if you need matching funds, then we can help you with a LOI. And then we're also able to identify some government grants that we might also think that you're eligible for.
Do you recommend anyone for the grant writing?
Yeah, I like to kind of understand the business and then understand the area of focus. We have, over 200 consultants that we work with in Canada. So once we understand your industry, we're better able to target someone that you should really be engaged with.
Another question, are there any fees for having an initial conversation with you?
No, free of charge. So please reach out. I'm always looking to engage with entrepreneurs in Atlantic Canada. It brings me so much joy on a day-to-day to hear all the great companies that are coming out of Atlantic Canada. It's so exciting. So if I can be of help, it's definitely, my time is free.
Yes.
I think that's it. Okay, so if anyone has any additional questions, there will be a copy of this presentation available to you. So feel free to reach out at any time, and I look forward to kind of hoping to set up a call with you and to be of assistance. Thank you so much.